Michaela, that's your name? I don't worry about a thing, because I know that every little thing is gonna be alright. So how you rate me now? Clearly I can't compete with Michaela. Where's Michaela? You've done so well. And I was so pleased to see your mom coming to give you that big hug. Sometimes we forget that we don't only represent ourselves, and the success of the child is owned by the parent. And indeed, that is considered progress when the child is able to fulfill and do better than what the parents could have done. And the parents look on with such great pride. So I was so happy to see the mom running out to give Michaela that big hug. Allow me to thank Reverend Devon Linton for lifting up this gathering in prayers. Let me acknowledge your Member of Parliament, but you all know him as the world-class Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett. We have with us today the Deputy Speaker of the House and a Member of Parliament in the parish, and I believe a neighboring constituency, Deputy Speaker Heroy Clark. I want to acknowledge the chairman of the NHT, Mr. Linval Freeman. Yes. And the managing director of the NHT, Mr. Martin Miller, and the executive team of the NHT. As I reflected on several groundbreaking and handing over ceremonies that we have conducted over the last 9 years, I can't recall the NHT being as active as they have been within this last 9 years. The number of groundbreaking ceremonies and handing overs that we have done, it's incredible. I have set a task for the NHT, and that task is for them to do 43,000 houses of the 70,000 houses that we have committed to build in Jamaica. And the NHT is well on its way to doing this. We had a little setback because of the COVID pandemic. It has really impacted the pace at which the NHT would have delivered housing relative to the 43,000 that they are tasked to do. But I'm pleased to report that they have gotten over that initial obstacle caused by the COVID pandemic, and now they are on track, and they are doing fairly well in increasing the pace. But allow me to also acknowledge Mr. Han Wei Fang, Vice President of the Henan Fifth Construction Group, and his team. Thank you for your comment, sir, and thank you for the commitment that you have made to Jamaica. Clearly, our partnership is a commercial partnership. But more than that, we have developed very good relationships. Certainly in terms of the commitment to delivering houses on time, the commitment to delivering quality housing, and the commitment for the transfer of skills and knowledge in construction to our local workers. And I am sure that the people who will occupy these houses and the people who will be involved in the construction of these houses will all benefit from the partnership with Hen and Fifth. It is a pleasure to be with you today as we break ground for what will become another beacon of progress in Western Jamaica, the Brookside Estate housing development. This monument marks more, or rather this moment, marks more than the start of construction. It signifies our continued commitment to making the dream of home ownership a reality for thousands of Jamaicans. Brookside Estate represents the government's firm belief that every Jamaican family, regardless of income, regardless of social status, deserves access to safe, affordable, and modern housing. That belief is not abstract. It is reflected in action, in investment, and in the partnerships that we forge. Today's project, delivered under the National Housing Trust Guaranteed Purchase Program, is yet another tangible proof of that vision. Under this project, we will be constructing 418 housing units, 240 one-bedroom homes, 178 two-bedroom homes on over 51 acres of land nestled strategically between Montego Bay and Falmouth. The location alone speaks to the potential of this community within reach of major employment centers, but yet designed to provide a tranquil residential environment. This initiative is being led by the Hen and Fifth Construction Group, Jamaica Company Limited, who have proven themselves as capable and dependable construction partners. Under the Guaranteed Purchase Program, developers take on the responsibility of design, implementation, and delivery of the homes, while the NHT assumes the market risk. That means that the NHT gives a guarantee to purchase all the homes, or a certain percentage of all the homes that Hen and Fifth will construct under this project. This reflects a modern and efficient approach to housing development. This new community, Brookside, these units will be designed with dignity and functionality. I want you to appreciate those two words. You know, we have seen houses built that can only be described as a matchbox. We have seen houses built that can only be described as ovens. We have seen houses built that you can only go in and turn around and come back out. Somebody say you can only go in and reverse. And we have said to the NHT that housing is more than just having a roof over your head. You know, housing is about the dignity of people, the pride of people, the convenience of the people, the comfort of the people. And at the end of the day, it must be an asset for the people. So we have to step up the game in the houses that we build. We have to integrate new technology to make sure that we are keeping up with modern times, but using the technology to mitigate some of the conditions that exist in the environment. So, you know, we are making sure that the houses that we build that yes, they are solid structure, so we're using concrete. We have to make sure that the bathroom facilities are up to date. And I gather from what I've seen here that they are ensuring that proper fixtures and tiling and all the modern amenities are in place in the unit. That you have a little bit of ceiling height clearance to make sure that you're not trapping the hot air in the homes that will end up broiling you. We're also making sure that your outer environs are properly done, that you have a little space for landscaping and gardens, that you have proper roadway and proper walkway, and a proper space for your recreational amenities. So we have taken the time to make sure that this community will not only be one where you just come home and sleep, but this is somewhere that you can actually live and enjoy your life. As we lay the foundation for the Brookside Estate, we're also laying the groundwork for economic growth in St. James. This development will serve as a catalyst for job creation and local business stimulation. During the construction phase, we anticipate the creation of numerous employment opportunities for skilled and unskilled workers in the region. From masons and carpenters to electricians and plumbers, this project will engage a diverse workforce, providing them with steady income and valuable experience. Moreover, the influx of residents to Brookside Estate will spur demand for goods and services benefiting local entrepreneurs and small businesses. From grocery stores and pharmacies to schools and transportation services, the community's growth will have a ripple effect invigorating the local economy. Indeed, your Member of Parliament is very eager to create an urban space in this suburban area. And he has given it a name already. It's the Oasis, the Brookside Oasis, Spot Valley, the Spot Valley Oasis. And I would pause here to say that this is very much in keeping with the spatial development strategy of the government of Jamaica. You know, the NHT, since its inception, would have delivered about 7,400 housing solutions in St. James. The NHT will be 50 years, I believe, next year or so, next year. 7,400 housing solutions. We will deliver another 2,250, that's what we have planned, in the next 5 years. We delivered the first 7,400 with housing schemes such as the Estuary, Cornwall Court, and Providence Heights. And we will deliver the additional 2,250 with projects like this one here at Brookside itself, Barrett Hall, Comfort, and Canterbury. And we have other projects that have not yet made it to the stage where we can announce them, but we are contemplating them. And these are only the houses that the NHT itself is developing or financing. Now, in all of this, in addition to what the NHT is doing, people are building their own houses privately. People are subdividing land and selling it, and people are building. So there is a private market for housing. In addition to that, there are persons who are irregularly settling land, and I'm being euphemistic. Let me say what you all understand that to mean. There are persons who are capturing land, squatting on land, and building their own houses. So regardless of what the government does, there will always be a set of persons driven by the need for shelter who will try to find their own way to survive. What the NHT has to do, the HAJ, the new social housing program, the Ministry of Housing, and all the other entities that have an impact on spatial development, the parish councils, is that we have to increase the pace at which we provide housing solutions that are affordable to the people. Whenever the pace of affordable housing solution delivery is slow, people are not going to sit by and just wait on the government. They are going to find their own means. And so what we have been trying to do at the NHT and generally in the government is to increase the pace at which government supports the housing sector. Shelter is a human right. Every human being is entitled to shelter. And the state, the government, must provide not shelter, but the government must provide the support mechanisms that make shelter accessible and affordable. So let's look at my earlier statement again. In this parish, so far the NHT has provided about 7,400 housing solutions. About how many persons live in St. James? Anybody knows what the census is for St. James? You can just go on Google or what they call it, Grok or OpenAI, and anybody can tell me what the population is here. I would suspect it's a little bit over 200,000 people or more. Anybody can tell me? Quickly. 183,000. I would say about 200,000 because that statistic would be a little bit dated from 2011. Exactly. So it's about 200,000. So the NHT would have provided 7,400 housing solutions. You multiply that by 4, let's say, on average. So you're looking at about 28,000 persons being housed. The rest of that number would have had to find housing solutions privately, right? Houses on what we call the open market, private construction. The NHT, however, also helps those persons who are going to purchase on the private market, on the open market, because the NHT provides mortgages at sub-market rates, meaning they provide you financing for houses at interest rates that are below market rate. Subsidized interest loans, mortgages. And some of those loans, under my administration, we have made them 0%. So depending on the income that you earn, if you are considered to be in the low income category, you pay as low as 0%. And in some other categories, you pay 2%. So you see how the NHT is helping you to be able to achieve this human right of shelter. Now, there is a category of persons who live or don't live at all in any shelter. But those shelter conditions are substandard. All of us here would agree that nobody should live in those conditions. And so the government, for those persons, have a duty. And that duty is essentially described as the provision of social housing, meaning the provision of housing for persons who are not able to pay for it. But let me change housing to shelter. The provision of shelter for persons who are not able to pay for it. And how does the government do this? The government does this, yes, through the NHT. The NHT has a grant program, and we need to speak a little bit more about this, where persons are assessed, and depending on their condition, they get a grant towards providing their shelter. We assist through the parish councils. The parish councils provide infirmaries for persons who are, some of them are not necessarily ill, but nobody is there to take care of them. We provide it by supporting some state-run golden age homes. We provide it by developing and running drop-in centers for homeless persons and street persons. And we have now, under my administration, developed a new program called the New Social Housing Program, where we provide housing for Jamaicans who are unemployed, elderly, pregnant and lactating, large families, families in distress, families at risk of environmental conditions, where we build these houses for persons and hand it over to them in an attempt to create intergenerational wealth in the family to break the cycle of poverty. So you see the programs that the government has that is helping you, all of you here can participate in some way or the other in acquiring shelter solutions. So we are dealing with people who have income and can afford, and people who don't have income and can't afford. Now, I'm not here telling you that the government's overall shelter policy works very well. It is a constant struggle to improve it. But I am here to tell you that we are much better off today in the provision of housing than we were 10 years ago. How can this provision of shelter be improved? All right. As I like to say, we are in the promising season. And there are some politicians who are going to come to you knowing your frustration, knowing your disgruntlement, knowing your anger, and try to feed upon that frustration, feed upon that anger, and make promises that may sound good to you now, but cannot be fulfilled. They're going to make promises to you that may address your concern now, and even vote or change your vote as a result of it. But when it comes time to fulfill it, it can't be fulfilled. And then you become part of the disbelieving, frustrated voter who believes that politics can't change anything. In other words, this cycle of political apathy, this is what created it. In my lifetime as a political representative, I have tried my best, and I think I've done very well, to avoid making promises that cannot be kept. And if these promises, if I've made and I can't keep them, rest assured that I have come to you and said, well, this can't be done again. Because there are things you come with ambition and aspirations, and it may not work. But I've never come to the people with an intention to trick them. In fact, what I have been accused of, Ed, is that I've been too frank. That I've told the people what the unvarnished truth was, and some persons didn't like it. And that has always been my style, to tell you what the unvarnished situation is. So, yes, there are gaps in our housing strategy. There are challenges, and there are areas which we haven't been able to address as we would have liked. But constantly we are working on them. And one area that keeps coming up all the time is housing for young people. And when I get an opportunity to talk to young professionals in particular, who are now working, they have a steady stream of income, they are faced with heavy rent, and they are saying, why am I paying this rent when I could pay a mortgage? And indeed, I'm very sympathetic to their concern. But I'm also confronted, as I told the story before, of another demographic of older persons, so they would be outside of the youth category, 18 to 39. And these persons have been working all their lives, and they still can't find a house. And then I've been confronted by persons who are at the end or almost at the end of their working life. And they are very frustrated, very frustrated. They can't find a house. And we have put in place several programs to address this. For those who are almost at the end of their working life, and they have family who are beginning their working life, we introduced a program called the Intergenerational Mortgage. And if you are hearing my voice and you fall in this category of persons who are heading to the end of their working life, but they have family coming in to the workforce, please consider approach the NHT regarding acquiring an intergenerational mortgage. So that means that you and your children can come together to secure a mortgage for a home. Now, if you look at the two other categories, young people just entering the workforce, wanting to acquire a home, what is the challenge for them? The challenge for them would be qualifying for the NHT mortgage. And that qualification would mean that they would have to have income that could support a mortgage. It would mean that they would have to be able to pay a deposit. But what is the real obstacle to that element of the market? The real obstacle, the real binding constraint, it's not the ability to pay the mortgage, because, and I'll come back to this later, because once you have income and you are so early in your working career, you can extend the mortgage even further and reduce your monthly payments. You have options there. And if it is the down payment that is the problem, if it's the NHT house you're going to get already, you can pay 0% down on some of the NHT houses. The real binding constraint, which the politicians that are promising you flying horses, like giving you putting $1 billion to pay down to pay down deposits. You know how many people that would be? Out of that cohort between 18 to 39 who would be considered youth, young, you're looking at over 40,000 people. And you are going to take $1 billion to give 2,000 people. How are you going to choose them? And why would you give that category and not give to other categories of people as well? A horse that you promise can fly, but I guarantee you, that horse can't fly. The real solution to this problem is to increase the number of houses that are specifically built for young families and young professionals. That is the real challenge. There is simply a demand and supply problem. It is a supply problem, actually. There is not enough houses. So the effort of government policy to solve this problem, shouldn't be on the demand side, meaning giving a subsidy to some people. The effort of the government should be on the supply side, increasing the number of houses. And this is a challenge that this society has, because the society does not properly interrogate the promises that politicians make. And we don't take the time to properly analyze what the solutions are and what the challenges are. So I find myself coming onto platforms like these, delivering lectures. Not that the press will ever carry it, because to get it into news bites may be difficult. But I still have to do it, otherwise the society will be carried off into all kinds of adventures, as we were carried off into adventures in the 70s and the 2000s. And you can see where it ended up. So the strategy of the government has been very clear, very well thought out, and very effective. One line of effort in this regard in dealing with the supply side issue is that we need contractors who can build and build fast. And we have been working with our local contractors, and we have struck up good relations with the Hen and Fifth Group, with China Harbor, as our foreign partners who have come to support housing construction in Jamaica. The truth is, we need enterprise-level contractors who can take on massive projects and deliver them on time without problem. And that we have to constantly be working on that. Now, just by the natural progress, as the NHT increases the number of projects that it has, we will be developing the local skills. Already, we have some excellent local contractors. I hate to call names, because if I leave out anybody, we're going to get in problems. But, you know, we have had established Wicon. You know, we have, that is West Indies Home Contractors. They did a project here, Rhine Park in St. James, you know. I don't want to go into too, because if I leave out anybody. But we have good local contractors as well. And so what we're trying to do is to encourage them to come into the market and put their talents into the construction of these kinds of housing solutions that are affordable to our young professionals and young people who are coming into the market. And that is why we have, instead of putting the money to give 2,000 persons a deposit while the other 40,000 look on, we have decided to support, for example, this program, which is called the Guaranteed Purchase Program. So if we take the risk from developers, that is the risk of constructing the houses and nobody purchases them, then it will become more attractive to them to come into this segment of the market. And so that's what has happened. That is why we have Henan Fifth here, and we have other projects like this with China Harbor. We have a developers program where the NHT will provide the land and somebody else will come in and develop. We have a joint venture and we support the contractors. We give support for the development of infrastructure and these kinds of things. We recently announced the small development program where we're going to target the rehabilitation of certain areas where roads exist, infrastructure exists, but these areas have suffered from urban blight. We will provide the financing and the support to mission developers to go into those areas and help with the reconstruction and development of those areas. It is these kinds of demand-side assistance, development assistance, that will expand the supply of housing. And that's what we are doing today. And it is because we have taken this kind of strategic approach why almost every fortnight now, for the last 3 months, the NHT has been fighting with my office to get space in my diary to have these handing overs, groundbreaking ceremonies right across Jamaica. Already, on this demand side of things, we have taken great steps. This year, we increased the individual loan limit from $7.5 million to $9 million. So if you want to buy a house on the open market, you can get an NHT loan which was 7.5 before, now to 9 million. We have moved the co-applicant loan from 15 million to 17 million. And if you are 3 persons co-applying for the loan, we have moved that from 21 million to 23 million. So what that does is to increase the amount of money that you have. So it really doesn't make sense to talk about, giving an additional 2,000 persons an additional $500,000. That's not going to be fair. If you're going to do it, you have to do it right across the board. Right across the board. Because what you would have done is given preference to one group over another group. In other words, you would have redistributed equity in the society. You would have made some persons better off and made other persons relatively worse off. So that's never good policy. And what we have done is that if the house that you are planning to purchase costs $14 million, if it's in that range, then you can get an individual loan of $12 million. So what that means is for those persons who, want to increase the loan limit, the developers increase the price. And we have seen that correlation happen too often. So what we have done is to create an incentive for developers not to increase their price because you would be moving out of the affordable price range. We have also made some other changes for persons earning under $30,000 weekly. The deposit for open market loans will be reduced from 5% to 2%, and the service charge will be removed altogether. And we are also advancing sustainable solutions. We are giving what is called the Smart Energy Grant, which offers up to $1.5 million for pensioners to install solar panels. And already 280 households have benefited from this grant. So, my friends, the government's housing policy, it's very thoughtful. It is very strategic. And it is working. We will be able to be breaking ground from now to after September. Every other week, we will have our groundbreaking. From now till after September and beyond. Why is it that we have been able to do this? Because we have done the work. And what you are seeing now is the fruition, meaning the work starting to bear fruit. So to my fellow Jamaicans who are concerned, reasonably upset, that for decades you have not been able to get your house, the strategy of the government is working. We are increasing the pace at which we deliver housing to Jamaicans. So once we increase the pace, meaning once we address the demand, the supply side of the issue, and we support the demand side as well, you're going to see the formal market for the creation, development, and construction of housing overtake, replace, and eliminate the informal housing sector. In other words, the way to deal with informal communities springing up, squatting, and irregular settlement is for the government to increase the pace at which it delivers formal housing, so that people will feel that I genuinely have a choice to go and participate in the formal housing market rather than to see a piece of land, watch it and say nobody now come there for how long, and then go and stake your claim on it. Ultimately, people want dignity and respect. And what the government is going to do is make it possible for you to acquire your home with dignity and respect. God bless you and thank you.